Here's something nobody tells you when you start looking into building a business later in life. You will ask 10 successful people the same question and get 10 different answers. One person will tell you to niche down to the exact one person you're helping. The next successful person will tell you niches don't matter anymore. One will say post every day. Another one, just as successful, will say one good video a week beats 5 rushed ones. And another will say start free. The other will say never work for free again. And here's the thing that actually gets me. These aren't just random people online. These are people who actually built something. They're actually successful. They've done the work, so they're not lying to us. So why can't any of them agree? That's the question that I'm trying to answer today. Not who's right, because I really don't think that that's the real question. The real question is, what does it actually mean when two people who both succeeded tell you two opposite things? Because once we understand that, something really useful happens. The confusion stops feeling like our problem and it starts making sense. I'm gonna walk you through what I found when I did a little digging and did some research to look into this. Not just my opinion, actual research on why this happens. And by the end, hopefully you'll never look at expert advice the same way again. And honestly, that's part of the point of this channel. I like to do a little digging, a little research, and find out what's what, so things don't feel as overwhelming to me or you. So let's get into it. I want to start with something that surprised me because I expected the answer to be simpler than it turned out to be. I assumed that when experts disagree, someone's probably wrong, right? Somebody didn't do their homework, or somebody's outdated, somebody's just trying to sell you something. Sometimes that's true, but it turns out there's a much bigger reason why experts disagree. It has nothing to do with anyone being a liar or dishonest. There's a Nobel Prize winning psychologist who spent years studying why smart, experienced professionals like doctors, judges, underwriters, entrepreneurs come to totally different conclusions when they're looking at the exact same information, whether it be the same patient, the same case, same facts, and still widely different answers. His findings were pretty simple. Whenever a decision requires judgment, not just plugging in numbers into a formula or something, but actually weighing things and making a decision, people are going to see it differently. Not because they're bad at their job, but because that's just what judgment does. It varies from person to person, even among people who are equally qualified. So the first thing we need to know is this: when two successful business owners tell you opposite things, that disagreement by itself doesn't tell you which one is wrong. It might just mean that you're looking at a decision that genuinely doesn't have one right answer. Two smart people can look at the same thing and land somewhere different, and both still be smart. And that already takes some of the pressure off, but it's not the whole story. There's a second reason. And honestly, I think this one matters even more for what you're trying to do. Here's a question I want you to ask. When someone gives you advice based on what worked for them, how do you actually know it worked because of the advice? Stay with me, because this is the part that kind of changed how I think about all of this. So picture 100 people who all tried the exact same approach to building a business. They have the same strategy, same effort, roughly the same starting point. Some of them are going to succeed. Most of them probably won't. That's just how building something new goes. Now, who do you hear from? You hear from the one who made it, right? The one who didn't make it usually they just stay quiet. They don't make a video explaining what didn't work. They don't write a book about it. They just quietly move on. So when a successful person tells you, here's what I did, what you're actually hearing is one story out of 100. And you have no way of knowing if the other 99 people did the exact same thing and it just didn't work for them. This isn't about anyone lying to you. The successful person is telling you the truth about their experience. But their experience all on its own was never designed to tell you what actually works in general. It can only tell you what worked once for one person and one set of circumstances. That's a really different thing than proof. And I think this is especially important to hear if you're thinking about starting something, a new career, a new business, something later in life. Because a lot of the advice floating around, a lot of it going around on social media, never tested against people in our exact situation, in your exact situation. It was tested against whoever happened to succeed and then got a microphone. There's one more piece to this, and I think it may be one of the most freeing things, at least for me it was. Even when someone gives you great advice, and even if it's genuinely well-researched, there's still a gap between whether a decision was a good decision and whether it worked out. I think of it like this. We already know we can make a really smart, well thought out choice and still have it not work out, whether it be because of timing, circumstances, money, or just plain bad luck. And you can make a pretty reckless choice and have it work out great purely by luck. It happens all the time. So when someone tells you to do this exactly this way, it worked out for me, what they're really telling you is the outcome, not necessarily whether it was actually a smart decision underneath. Those two things get mixed up constantly. And it's a huge reason why advice sometimes feels so contradictory. You know, people are judging what to tell you based on how it turned out, not based on whether the thinking behind it was sound. Once we can separate those two things being, was this actually a good decision versus did it happen to work out? A lot of the noise starts to quiet down. So let's connect all of this so that we can kind of make it all make sense. When two credible people give you opposite advice, it's almost never because one of them is a fraud and the other one's telling you the truth. It's usually some combination of these three things. Judgment naturally varies from person to person, even among equally smart people. Two, you're only hearing from the people who succeeded, not everyone who tried. And third, people generally tell you about the outcome, not really whether the decision itself was solid to begin with. So if we put those three things together and the contradictions in the advice that we've been getting, they finally make sense. It's not that the online business world is just full of people trying to manipulate us. It's that we've been trying to solve the wrong problem. We've been trying to figure out who's right. At least I have. And the skill isn't finding the one right answer. It's just learning how to actually weigh advice for ourselves. So what do we do about this? What do we do? Here's what I'm trying to do. The next time I come across advice or you come across advice, whether it be a podcast, a video, or someone on social media telling you exactly how to do this, that, or the other, pause before you follow it and quietly ask yourself two things. First, is this person telling me what they actually did, or are they telling me what actually caused their result? Number one, those aren't the same thing, and most people can't actually tell you the difference, even when they're trying, even when they're being completely honest. Second, what would it look like if this advice didn't work for someone? Would I even hear about it? Or would that person just quietly disappear from my feed? And we don't need a fancy framework for this. We just need to ask the right questions, at least those two questions, before we let someone else's experience talk us out of our own judgment and our gut instinct. And that's actually where I'm headed next, because knowing why the confusion happens is often step one. The next question is, once you understand this, how do you actually decide who to trust? I have a filter that I run every piece of advice through before I ever act on it. And I'm going to walk you through that whole thing in the next video. If you feel like you're drowning in conflicting advice about your next chapter, then that video is going to be for you. And if you like videos like this, please subscribe. I like to dig in, do a little research to try to help get rid of the overwhelm that we experience, especially later in life when we're trying to pivot or start something new. That's what this channel is about. So hit the subscribe button. If you're thinking through what your next chapter could look like, the 90-day reinvention planner, it walks you through exactly that. It helps you figure out where you actually want to go and mapping it out realistically in a way that only takes 90 days at a time. I'll leave the link in the description and I'll see you next time.